Good morning, everyone. In this session, we are going to learn Spring MVC with JDBC template. At the end of this session, you can able to create a application using Eclipse with the Spring framework, and also with the help of MVC, we can design and establish the connection with the database by using JDBC template. Let me know what is Spring MVC first. Spring MVC MVC is a Java framework. So it is a Java framework which is used to build web applications. And it follows the design pattern of model, view, and controller. It is used to build web applications, and it follows model, view, controller design pattern. So these can be achieved by the help of dispatcher servlet class. The dispatcher servlet class is used to receive the incoming request and map it to the right resources such as controllers, models, and view. Model means it contains a data of the application. It may be a single object or a collection of objects. Controller contains the logic of the application. We can use @controller is the annotation to mark a particular class as a controller class. And it acts as an intermediator between our front end, that means view, as well as with the business logic and data of the application in model package. View, it represents the provided information in a particular format. So we should know a few more things about Spring JDBC template. So Spring JDBC template is a technique used to connect to the database. Used to connect to the database and execute SQL queries. So Spring JDBC template is a technique used to connect to the database and execute SQL queries. Let us address some problems on JDBC. If you are working with the JDBC concept, we need to write a lot of code. Need to write a lot of code before and after executing a query, such as creating a connection and creating a statement object, handling result set and closing the result set and connections, etc. And also we need to handle the transaction. And suppose we are switching from one database to another database. For example, from MySQL database to Postgres or MySQL database to Oracle. We need to repeat all this code from all this code again. So that if we are proceeding with the Spring JDBC template, it will address all the mentioned problems of JDBC. And Spring JDBC template will address all the problems of JDBC, and also it provide a method to write the queries directly execute it on the platform. So what are the methods provided by Spring JDBC? So we will mainly using two methods. One is update. This method used to perform insertion, updation, and deletion. So the update method help us to perform the operations into the database, insert, update, and delete. And another method is query. This is the method used to retrieve data from the database. So let us start working with a small project by implementing Spring MVC as well as Spring JDBC template. And also we try to perform the operations insert, update, delete, and retrieving data from the database. So let me create a new dynamic web project. So you can use the option file new, then select dynamic web project. In this step, you can provide the project name. Suppose you cannot able to find the menu dynamic web project, you can use the option file new. Others, there you can search by using the keyword dynamic web project. Then you will get an option for dynamic web project. So create a new dynamic web project, enter your project name, Then make sure the target runtime is Apache Tomcat, which you installed in your system. And then the dynamic web module version 3.1, it will take based on the Tomcat server installed in our machine. In next step, we can view the build path. If you want, we can add additional build path for resources. Then we can proceed with the next and enable the checkbox to generate web.xml file in web.inf folder. Then finish. Let us wait. It creates a dynamic web project. If any background process is running, we have to wait until it completes 100%. Then we can start working with the directory. We can explore the project directory here. In the left-hand side panel is there for Project Explorer. So it is not a Maven project. It is a dynamic web project. Let us convert this dynamic web project into a Maven. So right-click on the project name. We can use the option configure, then convert to Maven project. So in this way, easily we can create a Maven project. No need to select the architecture type and wait for the internet connection. So it is very easy to create a Maven project. So first we create a dynamic web project, then immediately convert it into a Maven project by using the option right click on the project name, then choose configure and then convert to Maven project option. Right click, go to the option configure, then convert to Maven project. Here we can, if you want, you can change group ID, artifact ID. It will take based on your project name assigned in the dynamic web project and the packaging type. Otherwise, you can proceed with the default settings. Let us click on finish. Now the project directory structure has been changed to Maven. So form.xml is added. There is some change in the directory structure. By default, it opens form.xml in the editor. So this is the file form.xml. You can open it. Then we can add required dependencies. This is the right place to create a tag dependency next to the packaging tag. We can create a tag dependencies. So here we can add all the required dependencies for implementing Spring MVC with JDBC template. So let me add the required dependencies. Already we know that where we can find the dependencies for the project. So we can go to the website mvnrepository.com. In that website, we can search the dependencies. The first dependency for Spring MVC, you can search by using the keyword Spring Web MVC. Then you can get a link for getting a dependency for Spring Web MVC. So click on the link Spring Web MVC. Then we can see the available versions. So in my system, I'm using Tomcat 8.5. So it will support up to version 5.3.39. If it is above 5.3.39, if you are going to use 6, then change your Tomcat version. So it will support up to 5.3.39. Let me select the version 5.3.39. Then we can copy the dependency detail for Spring Web MVC. Return back to your project. Here we can paste the dependency detail. So then save, it will download the jar file for Spring Web MVC. And then another dependency is required to establish the connection with MySQL database. So let me copy the dependency from the website MVN repository for MySQL connector. You can use the keyword MySQL connector for search. Then search it and click on the link MySQL connector/J. You can choose the latest version. Here it is not an issue. Irrespective of a Tomcat server running in your machine, you can choose the latest version 9.0.0. Copy dependencies and paste it in your form.xml file. This is the second dependency I'm adding to establish connection with MySQL. Then one more dependency for handling Spring JDBC template. So you can search by using the keyword Spring JDBC. and click on the link Spring JDBC. Here also you can choose the latest version. 6.1.12 is available. So copy paste the dependency to your form.xml. Then we can add one more dependency, that is JSON. This dependency helps us to convert Java object into a JSON format. So search using the keyword JSON, then click on the link JSON, choose latest version 2.11 is available, then copy paste to your project. So then save it. As of now, I added a dependency for Spring MVC and dependency for establish connection with MySQL. Then to handle JDBC template and one more dependency for JSON. This dependency will help us to convert a Java object into a JSON format. So after adding these dependencies, you can save your form.xml file. Then if you make any changes in form.xml, we need to update it. So right click on the project name and use the option Movement. Then choose Update Project. Enable the checkbox for force update and click on OK. Then you can see the progress in the bottom right corner. If any jar file is downloading, you have to wait until it downloads 100%. Then you can start implementing your scenario. So now the all background downloading process is completed. My directory structure is ready for implementation. So first I'm going to implement Spring MVC so that we can able to create a controller, model and view. Then we can upgrade the project by using Spring JDBC template to perform database operations. To implement Spring MVC, we can implement the Spring MVC using a XML method and annotation method. I'm going to implement Spring MVC using the annotation method. So you can go to the folder Java resources. There you can see the path src main Java. Here we can create the packages and the controllers, models and view, whatever Java file is required that we can create it in the path src main Java. All the views would be available in the location src main webf. So let me create a package in src main Java in order to create Spring MVC project. So right click on the build path src main Java, then create a new package and provide the package name. So let me give the package name as klu.config. So naming the package is our choice. We can assign any name. So let me create one package for configuration, configuring MVC, Spring MVC framework, and one package for controller and one package for model. So I'm creating a package in the name klu.config. Then I'm creating another package. So another package called klu.controller. klu.controller. Then create one more package to handle the data of the application called model. So let me create one more package, klu.model. So why I'm using while creating a package klu.config, klu.controller, klu.model. One package will be the base package. So all the packages in Spring Framework must be kept inside the base package. That is the reason I'm using KLU as a base package. From KLU, I created 3 packages. That means 3 folders. What is config, controller, and then model. All these 3 packages are available in the base package KLU. After creating a packages, once you need to right click on the build path src main Java, then refresh. Then it will be organized properly. Then let us start configuring the Spring MVC. By right click on the package KLU config, create a new Java class. So right click on the package KLU.config and use the option new class. Here you can name it as MVC config. So naming also your choice. You can assign any name. So based on the scenario, I'm giving the name for this Java class as MVC config. So after providing name for the Java class, you can finish. Now you can able to see one Java file in the package klu.config. So then apply the inheritance by using the keyword extends. Sorry. Let me add some annotations for configuration. So one of the annotation is @configuration. It is from the package org.springframework.context.annotation. Then add another annotation, component scan. So this annotation will help us to configure the base package. Component scan. Within a bracket, you can provide your base package name. What is my base package? KLU is the base package. Okay, inside the KLU, I'm having three packages. One is config, control, and model. So we need to provide the base package name for this annotation component scan. Then we need to enable web MVC. So add annotation. It is from the package org.springframework. Enable web MVC. Then apply inheritance with the interface. Implements web MVC configure. So this is the code we have to write in the class MVC config. Then create another Java class in the same package by right click on the package name klu.config. Create a new Java class and assign some name. Let me assign the name as app config. Then finish. Now the Java class added into the package klu.config. Open that Java class and apply inheritance with extends abstract annotation config dispatcher servlet visualizer. So already I told Spring MVC can be implemented by using the dispatcher servlet class. So dispatcher servlet class help us to implement the design pattern, model, view, and controller. So we must inherit the parent class, abstract annotation, config, dispatcher servlet initializer. So once you added this into the newly created class app config, then you can get error on the class name. You just move cursor on the error, you will get an option for add unimplemented methods. So click on this feature, add unimplemented methods. It will add the required methods for implementation. So here it adds three methods: get root config class and get servlet config class and get servlet mapping. So we need to do the mapping, the root URL in the get servlet mapping method. What are the return type of get servlet mapping method is string array. So we must return a string array. So that I'm going to create a string array, new, create a string array and initialize with value. So only one value I'm adding into the string array, that is slash. I'm setting the root path for the controller. Then go to the method get root config class. Already we created one config class called MVC config.java. So here the return type is also a class array. Let me create a class array and initialize by using the class name which we created for configuration, MVC config.class. So now we successfully created a Spring MVC application. Okay, then configuration is done, you can move to the package KLU.controller. Right click on this package, create a new Java class, name that class as app controller. So naming is our choice. Just I'm giving the name of the controller as app controller. Let me going to use this particular controller for handling my model and view. So after assigning the name of the class, you can finish. Now you can able to see the Java file in the package KLU.controller. So then convert it into a controller class by adding the annotation @controller. So now we converted this class as a controller class. Then I'm going to set my root path by using the request mapping slash, then create a method for model view. Return type is model and view. Just name the method as index to set welcome page in your application. So create object for model and view because the return type is model and view. So create object for model view and initialize. So model view is the predefined class available in the package org.spring framework. So create object for model view and set view name. So let me give the view name as student. So just I will demonstrate with the student details, student ID, name, and department, that we will perform all the database operations, inserting student details into the database, updating the existing details of a student from the database, and deleting a particular record from the database. And also we will perform read operation, retrieve all the data from the database and display it at the front end. So then we need to return the object MV. So MV is the object of model and view. Just I created object for the class model and view. Then I'm setting the view name as student. So without extension, I'm providing the view name here. So next we need to configure the view part. You can go to src main and then webf. You can create all your front-end files in the directory webf, or you can create it inside the web-inf. Okay, so let me create all my front end in the directory webf. So right click on the folder webf and go to the option new, add a JSP file. You can see the option called JSP file in your menu. Otherwise, you can go to the option other, then add your JSP file. So let me adding a JSP file in the directory webf. I just name it as student.jsp. Then finish. So now we can see the file student.jsp in webf folder. So now I didn't create it inside the web-inf. I just created it student.jsp in webf folder. So once the front end is added, you can open it in the editor. This is the default code you can able to see in the file student.jsp. We can set the title JFSD JDBC template with MVC. So I just place a header H3 and display the content. Hello, hold. So then we can save the file student.jsp. So nothing I did, I just do the configuration for Spring MVC, and then I created one controller in the package KLU.controller. There I'm going to set the root path slash by using request mapping annotation. And this is the method I created to open a welcome page. When I'm going to deploy this project, it will open a particular page by default. So that's why I created one method. Inside the method, created object for model and view. Then view name has been set as a student because the file name I given for my front end is student.jsp. That's why I given the view name as student. and I'm returning the object MVC. So let me deploy the project so that we can understand how the configuration works and what is the further configuration required for implementing Spring MVC here. So I'm going to deploy my project. Right click on the project name, run as run on server, and select the Tomcat server which you installed in yours. Then proceed with next, finish. So once it is started, you can see the URL. It will be available on the port number 8080, localhost 8080, and the project name, Spring MVC with JDBC is the project name I given at the time of creating a project. But I cannot able to see my view here because I didn't configure my viewport. I configured the controller, but I didn't configure my viewport. So next I'm going to configure my viewport. You can go to the file mvcconfig.java to configure the viewport. So here we need to override a function or method. It is a predefined method, so that we need to override it. This is the method name, configure view resolvers. We cannot change the method name because it is a predefined one. So we must override the functionality of configure view resolver here. It needs a parameter of view resolver. View resolver registry is the class name and create object for it. So after overriding the method, configure view resolver in mvcconfig.java file, we need to set the value of the parameter object registry dot. There is a function called JSP. This function will take two parameters. One is prefix and another one is suffix. So prefix means path where all the front ends are available in the directory structure. So let me use WebApp folder to have all my front ends. So if you provide the value slash here, prefix value slash, by default, it will point WebApp directory in the directory structure. If you have all your front ends inside the web INF, you need to provide the complete path slash web INF. Further, you created a folder called views. There you need to provide the complete path here. So let me use WebApp directory to save all my front end files so that just slash is enough in the place of prefix. Then suffix is the extension of the file. So what is the extension of my front end? Student.jsp. .jsp is the extension of my front end file. So suffix we need to give as the extension of the file name .jsp. Once you done this, you can save your project, then start redeployment, run as run on server, next finish. So by default, previously, after deployment, we get an error. It says some error message. Now, the project is deployed after implementing the overriding the method configure view resolvers in mvcconfig.java file. It opens the file student.jsp by default. So this is how we can create a Spring MVC project using Eclipse. So what I did, I just created a dynamic web project, then converted that dynamic web project into a Maven project by right click on the project name. Then I'm selecting the option configure, then convert to Maven project. Once the project is converted into a Maven, I added the dependencies in the form.xml. So in my form.xml, next to the tag packaging, I created a tag dependencies. Inside, I list out all the required packages to implement Spring MVC and also Spring JDBC with MySQL database. So I copy pasted the dependency detail from the website mvnrepository.com. I searched by using the keyword Spring Web MVC. Then I selected the version 5.3.39. The Reason is I'm using the Tomcat version 8.5. If it is above 8.5, we can proceed with the version 6 series. So if you are using 8.5, you can take the version 5.3.39. Then copy paste the dependency for Spring Web MVC. Then search dependency for MySQL connector. Choose the latest version and you can copy paste. There is no restriction based on the Tomcat version which is running. Then find out the dependency for Spring JDBC. Here also we can choose the latest version. Then this is the additional dependency I added to convert a Java object into a JSON format. This dependency provided by the Google, it helps us to convert Java object into JSON. Why? Because we are next we are going to test with using Postman tool. There we will pass all the information in the form of JSON. So it is required to convert details into a Java object, either from JSON to Java object or Java object to JSON. So after adding all these dependencies, you can close form.xml. Once you make any changes in your form.xml, you need to update your project. So right click on your project name and use the option move and update project. Once the project is updated, then create 3 packages in the build path src main Java. I'm creating a 3 package. One is klu.config and another one is klu.controller and another one is klu.model. So why we need to create packages in this format? Uh, as per the Spring Framework policy, we must have one base package. In that base package, we can create n number of packages as per the requirement. So that I am using KLU as a base package. Inside, I created 3 packages. One is config, controller, and model. Then I created a Java file in the package klu.config. I just given the file name as MVC config. So naming the file is your choice. There is no restriction to use the same file name while creating a Java classes. So I created a Java class MVC config, added these annotations in order to implement Spring MVC here. So one is configuration and another one is component scan. Here we need to pass the value of your base package name. So KLU is my base package. That's why I given here as KLU. Then add the annotation web enable web MVC. Then applying inheritance with the interface web MVC configure by using the keyword implements. And this is the method I override here to configure my view part. So view will be created in the location src main webf. I created one front-end file student.jsp. In that file, I just given the content hello world in the body section. Then I need to configure my view. That's why I override the method configure view resolvers. So this method will take a object of view resolver registry. Then set value for the object registry .jsp with the 2 parameters. One is prefix and another one is suffix. Prefix is path where you have all your contents. So why I'm using slash here? Slash means it will go to the root folder. As per the directory structure, my contents are available in the root folder web. That's why I given slash here. Suppose you have separate folder to save all your contents. You need to provide the folder name here. Slash, suppose you created a folder inside the web app called views and you saved all your front end inside the folder view, then you need to give the complete path here slash views. So I'm just using web app to save all my front end. That's why slash is enough here in the place of prefix. And suffix is the extension of the file name. So what is my extension of the student.jsp is .jsp is the extension of my front end file. So I provided here .jsp as a suffix. So after overriding the method here, then you can save your project. Then go create another Java class app.config.java. Nothing will be, just create one Java class. You can assign any name. I given the name of the classes app.config. And this would be extends with the parent class abstract annotation config dispatcher servlet initialization. So with the help of dispatcher servlet, we can implement MVC design pattern in the Spring framework. So once you apply the inheritance with the parent class abstract annotation config dispatcher servlet initializer, you will get an error message on the class name app config. Then move cursor on the class name or error. You will get an option add unimplemented method. So click on add unimplemented method. It will add three methods. One is get root config class, get servlet config classes, and another one get servlet mapping. We need to set the root path for the controllers. Okay, that's why I'm using the method get servlet mappings. The return type of the method is string array, so that I'm creating a string array, new string array, and array is initialized with the value slash. Slash means it will become a root path. Then we already created a class for MVC configuration that should be added into the method get root configuration class. So this return type also a array of class. That's why I created array for the class, and it is initialized with the configuration class. MVC config.java is the configuration file. So I given the name of the class MVC config.class. So once this was done, you can save, then create your own controller in the package klu.controller. So I created one Java file in the package klu.controller. That file name is app controller is the file name I given. Then I converted this Java class into a controller class by adding the annotation at the rate controller. Then I'm going to set my welcome page. I want to set the front-end file student.jsp as a welcome page. When I going to deploy the project, this file should be open. So that I created root path by using the annotation at the rate request mapping. Then method is created, index. Naming of the method is your choice. You can give any name for creating a method. And return type the method is model and view. So that I created object for model and view inside the method definition. Then I'm going to set the view name as student. So as a file name is student.jsp, let me provide the name of the file. Student is the view name. Finally, we can return the object of MVC. So while deploying this project, your execution will start, and it try to execute the file, execute the method which you created for the request mapping slash, because slash will be the root path. Then you can, after done this, you can start deploying your project. Right click on your project name, run as run on server, choose the Tomcat server which you have in your system. Then next and finish. It will open the file student.jsp. It becomes a welcome file. So further, we can start implementing the concept of Spring JDBC. So now we can start implementation. Let me take the concept of student database. Student with three fields: student ID, name, and department we can take, and we try to perform all the operations: insert, update, delete, and also retrieve data from the table by using Spring JDBC concept. So in order to proceed with the Spring JDBC, we need to configure the file mvc config.java. So all your configuration must be placed in mvc config.java. So here I'm going to create a bean to implement CD high. You can use the annotation at the rate bean and create a method for data source. The return type of the method is data source. It is from the package javax.sql. So select the interface data source from the package javax. Don't select from org.apache.tomcat.jdbc.full. It is a class. You need to select the interface. Interface is available from the package javax.sql. Make sure from which package you are selecting. So return type is data source and name the method. So I name the method as data source. Here we need to create object for driver manager data source. That class name is driver manager data source. You can type 2 or 3 letters, then use control space. It will list out. There you can select the class driver manager data source from Spring Framework and create object for it. So I name the object as DS and initialize by using the class name. So once the object is created, we can set the properties to establish the connection with the database. For establishing a connection with the database, we will add 5 properties. If it is a XML annotation, we will add 5 properties in the configuration class. So it is an annotation method. Here I'm going to add the properties by using the object of driver manager data source. ds dot, there is a method set driver class name. So first we need to add the driver class name for MySQL database to establish the connection with MySQL. So call the method set driver class name. What is the driver class name for MySQL? You already know that the driver class name for MySQL is com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver. D is in capital letter. If you want, you can Google it and get the detail for driver class name for MySQL. Then we can add another property, set URL to establish the connection with the server. So set URL, it is also in the form of string. So URL, the connection URL for MySQL is JDBC colon MySQL colon /localhost. So localhost means where the database is running. So we try to connect with the MySQL database, which is running in our laptop or system. So localhost followed by the port number colon. The default port number for MySQL is 3306. Then slash database name. So what is the database you are already having in your MySQL? That database name you can provide. So let me check the database name using the MySQL Workbench. You can use MySQL Workbench or MySQL Cell to make sure what is the database name you have in your system. I have some databases. Let me use the database JFSD CLUSTER-2. So let me create it again better. Okay. So if you are not having a database in your MySQL database, you can create a new database. So right click here and use the option create schema. Let me give the database name as JFSD CLUSTER-2. Then apply, finish. Now you can able to see the database in the list. So this is the database just now I created. My database name is JFSD CLUSTER-2 C2. So as of now, there is no table. So let us create a table here. Right click on the table and use the option create a table. Here you can provide the table name. I'm going to create a table in the name student with 3 columns. So since we are not using Hibernate, or JPA. So it is a JDBC template. We must create a table. If it is a Hibernate, automatically it will create while deploying your project based on your entity class. Since it is a JDBC template, table must be created by the user. So create a table here with the 3 columns. Call first one ID of the student. Let me go with integer data type, and it will be the primary key and not null value. Then another column to get name of the student, varchar 45 by default. If you want, we can increase the size. Then one more column I'm going to create, that is department, varchar 45 by default. I live as a 45. So after adding 3 columns, click on apply. It will generate a query to create a table based on your input. ID is an ordinal value and is a primary key. And the data type is integer. Name varchar with size 100, it will accept null values. Department with the data type varchar, size is 45, it accepts null value. So then you can please click on apply to execute your script. Once the script is executed, then you can finish. Now you can able to see the table student under the tables. Try to execute a select query in order to view what is the content available in the table. So I'm executing a select query for the database JFSD C2 for the table student. So as of now, the table is created. So table is empty. We didn't add any data into the table. Just created a table with the 3 columns: ID, name, and department. And remember that what is the data type I'm using while creating a table columns. Integer I'm using for ID, varchar I'm using for name and department. So once the table is created, then you can return back to your code. You can provide the database name here. What is the database I'm going to use? JFSD C2. This is the database just now I created. If you want to use your existing database, you can proceed with your existing database name. Okay, so I'm going to use the database JFSD C2. That's why I given the database name JFSD C2 here. Then you can add another property dot set username. So the default username for MySQL is root. And then one more property, that is ds.set password. The default password which you provided at the time of installing MySQL database in your system. You can provide your database. Don't use my database password. This is my database password I given when I'm installing MySQL database in my laptop. You can provide your password in this place. So after setting the properties for the object of driver manager data source, you can return it. So bean I created to establish the connection with MySQL database to configure Spring JDBC concept. Okay. Then I'm going to create one more bean by using the annotation @bean. This is for JDBC template, auto wiring the JDBC template in our implementation. So public, the return type is JDBC template. You can use control space, you can get it JDBC template from the package org.springframework.jdbc.code. So JDBC template. Here you can pass the object of data source. This is the, I'm going to pass the object of data source. Then return new object of JDBC, class, and initialize the constructor by using the data source object. So CDI can be implemented for constructor or getter and setter, constructor or setter. Here I'm using the constructor to configure context and dependency injection for JDBC template. So once this was done, we can start implementation. So now I'm going to use my third package, KLU.model, to create a entity class. So right click on the package KLU.model, create a new Java class, name the class as student. I'm just creating an entity class for student and finish it. Now the class is created in the package KLU.model. So how many data members are required? As per the database table contains 3 columns: ID, name, and department. So that I'm going to create 3 data members for the class student. So what is the data type for ID? Is integer, int ID. Then name and department I given varchar, so that we can use the data type string for name and string for department. Then if you want, you can implement a constructor, public student is the class name with three parameters: int ID, string name, string department, and initialize the instance of members of the class. So this dot ID is initialized by using the parameter variable ID, and this dot name is initialized by using the parameter variable name, and this dot department is initialized by using the parameter variable department. So constructor is created with the three parameters to initialize the data members ID, name, and department. Then generate getter and setters for the data members. We can generate it automatically by right click on the file name student.java. Then use the option source. Click on generate getter and setters, department ID and name. Then click on generate. It will generate getter and setters for the data members ID, get method and set method. For name, get method and set method. For department, get method and set method. Then we can generate a toString so that we can able to test by using the Postman tool to view the values of the data members. So repeat the procedure. Right click on the file name student.java and use the option source. Click on generate toString. By default, all the data members ID, name, department is selected. No need to do anything here. Just click on generate. Now you can able to see a method at the end of the class. The toString is the method is overridden. What this method will do, wherever the object we are going to print as a string, the toString will get executed automatically. With this information, it will return class name followed by the square bracket. Within the square bracket, it will list out all the data members of the class ID with the value of ID, name, value of name, department, value of department. So this method will start its execution automatically where the object is printed as a string in the implementation. So just I created a class student and initialized with three data members ID, name, department. And I created a constructor to initialize the values. We can use set method also to initialize, and constructor also help us to initialize the data members. There is no necessity to must have the constructor in the entity class. If you want, you can add it. So I created a constructor with three parameters, that is ID, name, and department, and initialized the data members of the class ID, name, and department by using the parameter variables ID, name, and department. Next, I generated getter and setter for the data members. This is the get and set method for ID, get and set method for name, and get and set method for department. In addition, I added toString method. So after creating an entity class, you can save and create a implementation class. So or DAO class. So let me create an implementation class in the same package klu.model. Right click on the package klu.model, create a new Java class. Name the class as student manager or student DAO and finish. So I created an implementation class student manager in the same package where I have my entity class. I'm going to convert this class as a service class so that I can able to create object just like a variable wherever I want. So at the rate service should be added. Then create object for JDBC template. Create object for JDBC template. And in the MVC config, we are using the constructor method to initialize the JDBC template. Okay. So bean is created for constructor so that I can use the annotation auto wired for public. What is the class name? Manager is the class name. Just I'm creating a constructor for initializing JDBC template. I have one data member in the class. That data member is JDBC template. Here I'm just creating a constructor to initialize the data member JDBC. Okay. So already we given the configuration in mvc config.java to initialize JDBC with the property to establish the connection with the database. So here I'm using a constructor method of CDI injection, so that I'm using auto wired for the constructor. Here I can initialize the data member. This dot JDBC template equal to the parameter object JDBC template. So now the object is created for JDBC template and it is initialized by using a constructor. We can use set method also. So constructor is very compatible, so that I proceed with the constructor initialization. So then we can start implementation. Let me create insert operation first. This is for insert operation. Insert operation. So we can create a method public string. Why I'm using a string data type? Once I performed my insert operation, I can return the acknowledgement whether the operation is completed or not. That's why I given the return type as a string. Public string and method name. We can assign a method name, save data. And take object of the entity class. So what is the entity class name? Student. So take object of the entity class as a parameter. So I just created a method and I taken the object of entity class as a parameter. Inside the method, I'm going to perform insert operation using JDBC template. So what is the object name of JDBC template? This is the object of JDBC template. Use the first create a query. So create a string query for insert operation. So what is the query for insert operation? Insert into table name. What is my table name? I created in the database. In MySQL database, I created a table student. Student is the table name. So that I'm using a table name here, student values. How many values I need to pass? The table student has 3 column. One is ID, second column is name, and the third column is department. So once confirm with your MySQL, execute a select query. What are the columns you have in the table? ID, name, and department. So let me pass value to ID, name, and department here. So ID is declared as a integer data type in the database. Since it is an integer, no need to, the value not need to enclose with the single quotes. So I just terminate the string. I splitting the string by using the join operator. Okay, so previously it is a single string. Now I'm going to split the string into 2 parts. So up to this will be considered as a one string. This will be considered as another string. Okay, in between I'm using the join operator. Plus will act as a join operator. It perform concatenation of 2 strings. Okay, so along with I'm going to concatenate the value of ID. So what is my input parameter? S is my input parameter. So the object of S contains 3 data. What is that? ID, name, and department. So by using the object of student, I can get the ID. By using the get method, I can able to get ID, value of ID from the object student. So like this, I concatenated my ID into the query. So up to this one string, concatenate with the student ID, concatenate with the second part of the string. Okay, so one value passing to the ID is over. Next, we need to pass value to the name and department. So you can use the comma separator to pass value to the second column in your database. It is declared as a varchar. Varchar means it should be enclosed with single quotes. So use single quotes and split the string again. I'm going to split the string again, and I can able to get the value from get name. By using the get name method, I can get the value of the student, name of the student from the object, yes. This is for second column. So still we have one more column, that is department. Department is also a string. So it should be enclosed with the single quotes. Then try to split the string into two parts and concatenate the value of get department. Now the query is ready to perform insert operation into the database. Okay, insert into table name values. Then we need to pass value to the columns. First value, comma, second value, comma, third value. Why I'm not using single quotes for ID? Because it is declared as an integer. Why single quotes is used for name and department? It is declared as a varchar in the database. Okay. Then you can use the object of JDBC template. I already told very beginning, the JDBC template have two methods. What are the method? Update and query. The update method helps us to perform insertion, updation, and deletion operation. And query method is used to retrieve the data from database. This is the mainly used methods in the class Spring JDBC template. So let me use to perform insert operation so that I can call the method update. Then I can pass my query as a parameter to the method update. This update method will take care to establish the connection and executing a query and closing the connection. Everything it will take care and managing the transactions. So finally, we can return the acknowledgement. Return new student has been added. This is my acknowledgement I want to return back from the method save data. So simply only three statements I used here to create a insert operation. First statement is just a string. There I provided the query to perform insert operation with all required inputs, ID, name, and department. Then only one statement is enough to perform insert operation. This is for insert. JDBC template is the object of JDBC template. One of the method is update. We can call the method update and pass the query as a parameter to the method update. It will perform insert operation. Once it is done, you can return the acknowledgement. New student has been added is the acknowledgement you can return. Okay. Suppose if you facing any issues while establishing a connection with the database, because we are connecting with the third-party application, either MySQL or PostgreSQL or Oracle. So whatever it is not related to the Spring environment. It is running in separate environment. Okay, it is a third-party application. Definitely, there is a chance to have some issues while establishing a connection and also while executing a query. Suppose we set ID as a primary key. If you assume that you inserted the student ID 1 with the student name and department, again by mistake you entered 1 and another student ID name and department, it will throws an error because of primary key violation. Okay. So that should be handled properly by using the try catch mechanism. So that I'm going to create a try catch here to handle the exceptions. So I created a try catch. These three statements are enough to perform insert operation. Okay. So let me have this logic inside my try block. Let us have the logic inside my try block. If it is inserted successfully, it will return the acknowledgement new student has been added. Suppose we given the primary key again, repeated the primary key again while performing insert operation, it will throws the error. That error is handled by the catch block. Then what is my acknowledgement? My acknowledgement is the error message, e dot get message. Whatever error you caught, that you can return as a acknowledgement from the method save data. I hope you understand the logic. Simple try catch mechanism to handle the exception. Only these three statements are enough to perform insert operation. If while performing insert operation, if you are facing any errors during the execution, it should be handled by the catch block. Whatever error you thought that you can return as a acknowledgement. Then you can save. We will test whether the data is saved into the database or not by using JDBC template. For that, we need to create a controller. Okay, so in the controller package, I have one controller. We can use the same controller to add a number of services. In order to avoid the confusion, you can create a separate controller for a student database. So that I'm going to, this is the existing controller. Here itself, you can add a service. There is no issue on that. But to avoid the confusion, you can use this particular servlet to handle your views. So that I'm going to create a new controller in the same package, klu.controller. Create a new Java class, name that controller as student controller. So just I'm creating a Java class in the name student controller. Then convert this class into a controller class by adding the annotation @controller. Then we are returning a string. We are not returning a model and view. Okay, so all my response in the form of a string or JSON data. JSON also a string form, string. So I can set my response as a string. That's why I'm adding the annotation in class level @response body. Then I can set my root path by using the annotation request mapping. Request mapping. I can set my API name. This is my API name. Student is the API name, controller name. Then inside, you can create object for your implementation class. What is the implementation class? The student manager is the implementation class. Let me create object for the implementation class, student manager. We can create object like this. Why? Because the student manager is annotated with the annotation @service. So auto wired is possible while creating object for student manager. So we can create object for student manager by using the annotation auto wired. So if we forget to add the annotation @service for student manager, we cannot use auto wired. We must initialize by using new student manager. Okay. So since we added @service to the class student manager, we can auto wire here. Okay, then create a new service to perform inside operation for student database, student table. So I'm using @post because I'm going to perform a write operation. There are 4 type of mapping we can perform. One is post mapping, get mapping, put mapping, and then delete mapping. So only 4 type of operations we can perform with the database. Wherever you are going to perform inside operation, you want to write something into the database, you can proceed with post. Okay. And then if you try to retrieve the data from your database and send back to your front end, you can use get mapping. If you want to modify your existing data, you can proceed with put mapping. If you want to delete existing data from your database, you can proceed with delete mapping. So here, as of now, in my implementation class, I created a method to perform only insert operation. So I'm going to write something into my database. So let me proceed with post mapping. And we can set service name here. So I given the service name as save. Then create a method. Okay, my return type is string. Always it is string only. So return type is string. I name the method as save. And this method will take a object of student class because we are passing the input to the student table. It's not a single value. It is a multiple value, ID, name, and department. So all this value are encapsulated into the entity class student. So we can pass the object of student class. So you can find out the class student from the package klu.model and you can create a parameter object. Yes. So now I created a method with a parameter of student class. So here I can return by call the method of student manager. In the student manager class, just now we created a method called save data, and you can pass yes as an input. Once go through the student manager, look at the method save data. It needs a parameter of student object, and it will perform insert operation. It will return a string. Either it is success, it will return a string contains new student has been added. Otherwise, it will return an error message. Whatever error it got, that will return. That's why I given the return type of the service as string. I named the method as save. I've taken the input of student object. Then I call the method of save data from student manager class. I'm passing my input to the student data. What save data method will do? It will perform insert operation and returns acknowledgement in the form of string. Whatever string you received that you can return to your front end. So this will not work. Let us understand why it is not working. Let me deploy the project now. Right click, run on server. I am selecting the Tomcat server. Definitely it will give an issue so that we can understand why, how to resolve that issue. So it opens my front end hello world. So that means the project is running successfully. Okay. Then how we can test the controller, the service save we created in the controller student. So how we can test whether it saves the data into the database or not. Without front end, let us test all the services by using a Postman tool. Once the testing is done, then we can integrate this with the front end. So let me use the Postman tool. So here I'm going to test. So what type of service I created? Look at the class student controller.java. It is a post mapping service. I'm using the annotation post mapping. So my service type is post. What is my URL? So after deployment, what is the URL you got in the browser that you can copy and you can paste it in the place provided for URL http localhost 8080 followed by your project name / This is my root URL. From here, I can able to access my controller. What is my controller name? This is my API name. Student is the API name. So that I can provide here. Student is the API. In that controller, there are n number of services. As of now, we have only one service. What is the service name? Save. You can provide the service name. Save. Okay, so this is the complete URL to access a particular service from the controller named as student. Okay, so then you can provide your input. This method will take a object of student class. Student class means it's an entity class. It has three parameters. What are the three data members? ID, name, and department. We need to pass value to the data members of student class. ID, name, department. Okay. So to give value for the data members, we can pass the input in the form of JSON only. So that you can, how can we pass input in the form of JSON using a Postman tool? Many of them knows how to pass. Make sure you have the header, one of the header. You click on the tab header. Make sure that you have one of the header called content type / application JSON. So as of now, there is no header in the name. Content -type value is application JSON. Okay, once you go to this procedure body, then here you can set your type of input, raw input, and the format of input is JSON. Okay, once again, I'm repeating. I given my request type is post request. Then I copy paste the root URL from the browser, and then followed by the controller name, API name. Inside the controller, which service you want to call, that service name. This is your complete URL. Then you can select on the tab body, then choose your input type as raw, and format of input is JSON. Once you've done this, here you can pass your input. JSON means it should be enclosed in open and closed brace. All the JSON data is a string only, but it will be enclosed within the open and closed brace. It will be in the form of key and value. Okay. So here we need to provide the key, then value. So how many key and values we have in the entity class student? 3 data members will become a key. Okay, one is ID, name, and then department. So let me create a 3 key and value because my entity class has 3 data members. What is my first key? ID is my first key. You can go through your entity class student.java. What is your first data member? ID. ID will be the first key. Second one is name. And third one is department. Then I'm going to pass value to the data members. ID is 1 and the name of the student and the department of the student. Since ID is an integer, we can directly pass without double quotes. But name is a string that should be enclosed with double quotes. And the department is also a string that should be enclosed with double quotes. Okay, then you can, now you provided the input, we can send a request to the service, we can get it an error. Okay, request not yet completed. So the reason is why the request not yet completed. In the student controller, we given the object, but we didn't mention that where the input can be taken. So the input can be taken from request body. We must add the annotation @ request body. So if you provide this annotation to the parameter in your student controller.java file, it will compiler will understand that it will take input for the class student from the JSON, which is provided in the body while sending a request. It is taken from the request body. So again, we can redeploy the project. So I redeployed my project. Now I'm going to pass my input. So I can get an acknowledgement. If I send a request again with my inputs, previously it gives an error because of @ request body is not yet given for the parameter in the student controller. Okay, now it understands that it will take input from your request body. So in request body section, we given a JSON format of input for ID, name, and department. So the input will go to the controller object student yes. Then here we have the method statement to call the method save data. Whatever data you have in yes, that will be passed to save data. Then the control will move to the student manager save data method. Here we can, it will try to execute these 3 statements. Insert operation by using JDBC template.update, and it returns the acknowledgement new student has been added without any issues. So now we will test the database. You can open your database. As of now, the table student is empty. If I execute a select query one more time, I can able to see my inputs here. What is the input I given in the Postman? Here I given ID as 1, name and department. That is available in my table. ID, name and department. So like this, we can implement a Spring MVC with the JDBC template to perform database operation. So advantage of JDBC template is it simplifies our work. It will take care of establishing a connection, closing a connection, handling a transaction management, all those things it will be taken care. So we can done the insert operation with only one statement, just JDBC template dot update, and you can pass your query. Now I will try to insert again. Suppose I'm going to insert the student, another student data, name of the student, and a department of the student. But I forgot to give a new ID for this student. What will happen? ID will be the primary key. It won't accept any duplication. Okay. If I send my request, I can get a error message. Insert into student values duplicate entry 1 for the key. Okay. This was coming from my catch block. Whatever error I got, that returned by the catch block. So let us stop up to this today. We will continue the same in the next session. The remaining operations, update, delete, and retrieving data from the database using Spring JDBC. And also we will integrate this in the front end student.jsp file. Thank you.